Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lucky Prediction English podcast. I'm Vincent and
I'm Jenny.
I'm excited for today's deep dive. We're going to be exploring a fascinating aspect of astrology and relationships. You know,
Happy to be here.
how sometimes you just get a feeling about someone, like they're not being entirely truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to talk about 3 zodiac signs
Right.
who are believed to have a particularly strong sense of intuition when it comes to spotting those little white lies, especially in romantic relationships.
That's right. We often hear about certain signs being more compatible than others, but today we're looking at those who are especially difficult to fool.
Okay.
And for all our listeners taking notes, we'll be sure to mention the date ranges for each sign as we go.
Perfect.
Uh-huh.
And I have a feeling this might be valuable information for some of our listeners out there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the enigmatic Scorpio, born between October 24th and November 22nd.
Okay.
I've always heard they have an almost supernatural ability to see through facades. Is that true?
It's definitely a common belief. Think of it this way. Imagine you're having a conversation with a Scorpio, and you try to gloss over a detail about your past. You might think you're being subtle, but a Scorpio will likely pick up on that hesitation, that slight shift in your energy. They might not call you out right away, but they'll file it away in their mind.
So it's not just about being observant.
Right.
It's about remembering those tiny inconsistencies and connecting the dots later on.
Exactly. Scorpios are known for their intensity and their ability to delve deep beneath the surface. They're not content with superficial explanations.
Okay.
They want to understand the motivations and the psychology behind people's actions.
Wow. So basically, don't even try to play games with a Scorpio.
Right.
Let's just say it's not a strategy I'd recommend.
Yeah,
They have a way of uncovering the truth, whether you want them to or not.
that's good to keep in mind. All right, next up we have Aquarius,
Okay.
born between January 20th and February 18th. They're often described as the free thinkers and innovators of the Zodiac. How does that tie into their ability to detect dishonesty? What's interesting about Aquarians is that they see the world through a different lens.
Okay.
They're not bound by conventional thinking or emotional biases.
Interesting.
So when they encounter a situation where someone isn't being truthful, their detached perspective allows them to see it for what it is, a manipulation tactic or an attempt to control the narrative.
So it's almost like they're seeing the situation from a bird's eye view
Yeah.
without getting caught up in the emotional drama.
Exactly. And remember, Aquarians are incredibly intelligent and analytical.
Right.
They love to gather information, and they're skilled at piecing together clues. They might not react emotionally, but they'll be analyzing your words, your body language, and even your past behavior to see if everything adds up.
So trying to pull a fast one on an Aquarius is probably not going to end well.
Let's just say, they have a way of seeing through the smoke and mirrors, and they might not even confront you directly. They might just quietly distance themselves once they realize they're being deceived.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, our final sign is Virgo, born between August 23rd and September 22nd. They're known for their meticulous nature and attention to detail. I can already imagine how that might make them excellent lie detectors.
You're right on the money with that one.
Okay.
Virgos notice everything. It's like they have a built-in microscope for observing the world around them. So while others might miss subtle changes in tone or body language, a Virgo will pick up on those inconsistencies immediately.
So while a Scorpio might be looking for deeper motivations, and an
Yeah.
Aquarius might be analyzing the overall logic,
Right.
a Virgo is hyper-focused on those tiny details that betray the truth.
Precisely. They're like human lie detectors, constantly scanning for any discrepancies between what you're saying and how you're acting. And because they value honesty and integrity so highly, they tend to have very little tolerance for deception.
That's pretty intimidating. Would you say it's almost impossible to lie to a Virgo?
Well, let's just say it's incredibly difficult. They're incredibly perceptive and have a knack for remembering details. So even the smallest slip-up can raise their suspicions. And once they start to question your honesty, it can be very difficult to regain their trust.
Wow.
Remember, Virgos are analytical and meticulous. They'll want to examine the situation from every angle and make sure everything aligns.
So the message here is clear.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with a Virgo, honesty is truly the best policy. Now, we've talked about these 3 signs individually, but I'm curious
Yeah.
how...
It's fascinating to consider how these signs might interact with each other in relationships. Imagine a Scorpio's intensity clashing with an Aquarius's need for independence, or a Virgo's meticulous nature trying to navigate a Scorpio's emotional depths.
That's a great point. You've got me picturing a Virgo trying to organize a Scorpio's sock drawer.
Yeah.
But seriously, it makes you wonder if knowing someone's sign can help you understand them better, especially in terms of how they approach honesty and trust.
Absolutely. Astrology can be a powerful tool for gaining insights into yourself and others, but it's important to remember that it's not a crystal ball.
Okay.
Just because someone is a Scorpio, Aquarius, or Virgo doesn't automatically make them a master lie detector or guarantee they'll never tell a white lie.
Right. It's about tendencies, not absolutes. We're
Yay.
all individuals, and there's so much more to a person than just their sun sign.
Exactly.
Hmm.
There are so many other factors at play. Moon signs, rising signs, the specific placements of the planets in their birth chart. Astrology is a complex and nuanced system.
Okay, so we need to avoid those stereotypes,
Oh, Joe.
right? Like not assuming every Virgo is going to be hypercritical
Yeah.
or every Scorpio is going to be brooding and intense.
Exactly. It's about using astrology as a starting point for understanding, not as a definitive judgment.
So if you're dating someone and you know their sign, you can maybe use that information to be more mindful of their sensitivities, but you shouldn't let it define the entire relationship.
That's a great way to put it. It's about being respectful of individual differences and recognizing that everyone has their own unique way of expressing themselves and navigating relationships.
And speaking of navigating relationships, I think it's important to acknowledge that this whole lie detecting ability, whether it's astrologically influenced or not,
Right.
can be a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. While being perceptive can be beneficial in spotting deception, it can also lead to overanalyzing situations, reading into things that aren't there, or even becoming overly suspicious.
So imagine a Virgo with their attention to detail, constantly scrutinizing their partner's every word and action, looking for inconsistencies. That could create a lot of tension and distrust in the relationship.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between being aware and being overly critical or controlling.
And for a sign like Scorpio, who's known for their intensity and sometimes possessiveness, that ability to delve deep could potentially lead to jealousy or controlling behaviors.
It's definitely something to be mindful of. Trust is essential in any relationship. And if one partner is constantly questioning the other's motives or actions, it can create a very toxic dynamic.
I'm thinking about our Aquarius listeners right now.
Yeah.
They value their freedom and independence so much.
Mm-hmm.
Would they even tolerate being with someone who's constantly trying to dissect their every move?
Probably not. Aquarians are all about authenticity and intellectual honesty.
Uh-huh.
They need a partner who respects their space and allows them to be themselves without feeling suffocated.
So it sounds like even if someone has a strong sense of intuition or a knack for spotting lies, it's how they use that ability that ultimately determines whether it's a positive or negative force in their relationships.
Exactly. It comes back to communication, empathy, and understanding. If you can use your perceptiveness to build trust and create a safe space for open communication, then it can be a real asset.
Okay.
But if you let it fuel suspicion and control, it can backfire.
And I think that brings us back to a point we touched on earlier. Everyone has an intuitive sense, a gut feeling that tells us when something feels off.
That's so true. Whether it's a subtle shift in someone's tone of voice, the fleeting micro-expression, or just a nagging feeling that something isn't quite right.
Yeah.
We all have that inner voice trying to guide us.
It's like that feeling you get when you meet someone new and your intuition screams run,
Yeah.
even though you can't logically explain why.
Exactly. It's our subconscious mind picking up on subtle cues that our conscious mind might miss.
Right.
And it's often more accurate than we give it credit for.
So how can we learn to trust that inner voice more, especially in the context of relationships?
It's about paying attention to those subtle feelings and sensations. Don't dismiss them as just overthinking or being paranoid. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself what your intuition might be trying to tell you. Are there patterns of behavior that are concerning? Are there inconsistencies in their words or actions?
And it's also about trusting your own judgment. Sometimes we ignore those red flags because we don't want to believe the truth, or we're afraid of being hurt.
Absolutely. We can get so caught up in the idea of who we want someone to be that we overlook the reality of who they actually are.
But remember, those gut feelings are there for a reason. They're trying to protect us from potential harm, whether it's emotional, physical, or otherwise.
Exactly. And the more we practice listening to our intuition, the stronger and more reliable it becomes. It's like a muscle we can develop over time.
So it's not just about being a Scorpio, Aquarius, or Virgo. It's about tapping into that innate wisdom that we all possess.
That's a great way to put it. It's about empowering ourselves to make informed decisions in our relationships and to trust our own inner compass.
All right, so we've talked about lie detection, intuition, the importance of trust, and how dupe and zodiac signs might approach these themes. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier about how some signs might be more sensitive to deception than others. But we also said that everyone has intuition. So for those listeners who maybe aren't a Scorpio, Aquarius, or Virgo, How can they sharpen those lie detecting skills?
That's a great question, and it's something we can all benefit from regardless of our astrological sign. It's about honing those observational skills and really paying attention to the
So
details.
it's like being a detective in your own life.
Exactly. Start by noticing the basics: body language, tone of voice, eye contact. Do their words align with their actions? Are there any inconsistencies in their stories?
Okay, so let's say I'm talking to someone and they say they're excited about something, but their tone is flat and they're avoiding eye contact. That's a red flag, right?
Absolutely. Our nonverbal cues often reveal more than our words. And remember, it's not just about spotting outright lies. It's also about sensing when someone is holding back, being evasive, or trying to manipulate the situation.
That makes sense. So it's about paying attention to those subtle discrepancies between what someone is saying and how they're behaving.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the better you'll become at recognizing those red flags. It's like learning a new language. At first, it might seem overwhelming, but with practice, you start to pick up on the nuances and understand the deeper meaning.
That's a great analogy. So it's not about becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone. It's about being more aware and attuned to the subtle signals people are sending.
Exactly. And remember, sometimes those inconsistencies are unintentional. Maybe the person is just nervous or having a bad day. It's about using your intuition and your judgment to discern whether those red flags are worth exploring further.
So it's not about jumping to conclusions, but rather gathering information and using your best judgment to make informed decisions about who you trust and how you navigate your relationships.
That's perfectly put. It's about empowering yourself to be a discerning judge of character. And remember, trust is a two-way street. It's not just about being able to spot deception in others. It's also about being trustworthy yourself, being honest and transparent in your own interactions.
That's a really important point. It's about building relationships based on mutual respect, honesty, and open communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all strive for regardless of our zodiac sign.
Well said, Jenny. This has been a fascinating deep dive into a topic that I think resonates with everyone. We've learned about those signs who are supposedly skilled at spotting lies, but we've also explored the universal human experience of intuition and trust.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And remember, listeners, you don't need to be a Scorpio, Aquarius, or Virgo to have a keen sense of intuition. We all have that inner voice guiding us. So trust your gut, pay attention to those subtle cues, and always strive to build relationships based on honesty and respect.
And don't forget to have fun with it. Astrology can be a fascinating tool for self-discovery and understanding, but don't take it too seriously.
That's great advice. Thank you all for joining us today on the Lucky Prediction English podcast. For more insightful deep dives, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.